Polly want a cracker, ha, ha, laughed the parrot. No, Polly doesn't want a cracker, ha, ha, the parrot continued. For there is no one in the room to give me a cracker, and I've eaten up the one I had in my cage. I have some seed and some water, but not a trace of a cracker. Polly, the parrot, stepped out of her cage and looked about the room. She flew this way and that, and she had a good-sized room in which to fly, a room with very high ceilings. Polly doesn't see a cracker, she said to herself. She couldn't talk to anyone else, you see, because there was no one else in the room. And she knew perfectly well that the pictures on the walls and the rugs on the floor didn't care about being talked to. She had never heard them say anything or fly about or walk about, and she knew very well why they couldn't. Because they weren't live things. They weren't people, nor were they animals, nor birds. They were nothing but rugs and pictures and extremely, extremely silly. She hadn't been looking about long when her mistress came in all dressed up in a most beautiful manner. Well, Polly, her mistress said, we are having a party today. Polly have a party, Polly have a party, said the parrot. And when the guests arrived, Polly looked down from her perch and said, Polly have a party, Polly have a party. How everyone did laugh and admire the nice, cheerful, friendly Polly parrot. And her mistress was very proud of Polly. Creatures and things aren't to be admired who won't take the trouble to go out of their way to do nice things, said Sugar of the Sugar Bowl. And as the Sugar Bowl can't go walking around looking for nice things to do, at least it can admire the salt cellar and the pepper shaker for the work they do in seasoning and making things have a good taste. Ah, Sugar Bowl, said the salt cellar, I am glad to hear you talk this way. For some time I have been afraid that you didn't have enough character. I was very much afraid that you were becoming too sugary and too weak. The pepper shaker would tell you, too, how much he thinks of you, but if he comes about too much he is apt to make people sneeze. He doesn't like to do that. He can't help it if too much of him is used, but he hates to be used like that. He likes to add to the taste of things, but not to be made out a cruel creature. Yes, he had a terrible blow once. He was treated so badly. It wasn't fair to him at all. Some very mean boys and girls thought it would be fun to put sneezing powder in the flowers which they would give to their friends to smell. Then as their friends began to sneeze they would laugh. Well, a great deal of my pepper friend was used then. He made those people sneeze and he didn't want to in the least. Oh, he did feel so badly about it. It wasn't funny, he said, it was mean, out and out mean. The people who sneezed were miserable. Their noses hurt, their throats hurt and they couldn't sleep for several nights. One little girl who had sneezed so hard and so much lost her voice for several days, for the sneezing powder got down in her throat, and her throat has never been quite so strong since. So I think we should all be used in our places and not too much of any of us, for if too much sugar is used things will be sickish, and if too much pepper or salt is used the poor pepper and salt creatures are taken a mean advantage of. There was once a grown-up lady, said Daddy, who had loved the stories of the fairies and of birds and flowers when she had been a little girl. She had so loved to read of all the kind deeds of the fairies that she had made up her mind that when she grew up she would do something kind too. Well, this lady had the roof of her house made into a sun parlor. There were trees all round, and moss, and little pools of water which she had fixed to look as much like out of doors as possible. The sun parlor she had enclosed in glass. Of course the glass made the sun shine through all the brighter. And she had little wee doors so the birds could get in and out, but so small that a cat could never get into this bird home. But still more wonderful was a big cellar where all kinds of good apples, breadcrumbs, more water and countless goodies were kept. But how could the birds get from the roof to the cellar? Asked Jack. I don't wonder you ask that, said Daddy. The lady had all that part beautifully arranged. In the sun parlor were tunnels which led down into the cellar, and the birds used to love going through these dark passages into the goody shop, as it was called in bird language, and it sounded the same to them as it would to you in boy and girl language. At first the birds were tempted into their winter home by the breadcrumbs that were in the sun parlor. For, of course, as you can imagine, it took the birds some time to get used to a beautiful summer home in the winter that was really just for them. Soon, though, little birds know when people are being kind to them. Of course the lady let all the birds who wanted to come in have just as good a time and stay just as long as they wanted to. But she especially wanted little sick birds who had perhaps fallen out of their nests. One day the lady came across a baby robin whose family had arrived before the warm weather. The baby robin had fallen from its nest, and very gently the lady picked him up and took him to the sun parlor. The mother was crying nearby for she saw her baby being taken away from her and she couldn't help at all. But she saw from the top of a tree where her little sick baby was taken. How happy and relieved she was, for, of course, she had to be in her nest with all the other little robins. But she sang every day the most wonderful songs for the lady who watched over her baby robin until it was quite strong and able to fly. Honk honk, it seems a pity, said one automobile to the other. I know, I seem like the rudest sort of an old thing. I scare folks, and children just run when they see me coming. But it does seem a pity. Yes, it seems a shame that I can't help it. One day I was resting. My owner had gone inside a building. I heard a little girl and an old lady talking. The little girl said, I've been quite ill and my heart is just beginning to get strong. I have a horrible time crossing the street, for I simply cannot walk across. Those old automobiles make me run. The old lady said to the little girl, I know just how you feel, my dear, for I have been ill too, and I am not supposed to run fast. It hurts me when I run fast and yet I have to hurry to get out of the way of the automobiles. I don't see why they have to make people run, when they're not going to fires and they're not going after accidents, said the little girl. It does not seem fair in the least. It doesn't, said the old lady. But I don't suppose the people who run automobiles are ever sick. They don't know what it means to have a horn tooted at them when they feel they cannot run. And it seems a pity that folks should be in so much of a hurry, as they run along in their automobiles, that they can't give those who are walking a fair chance, too. Sometimes I wish I weren't an automobile. Sometimes I wish I were one with a different owner, said the second automobile. Maybe we will be sold and nice people will own us, who will consider those who are walking, said the first automobile. Let's hope so, said the second automobile. There's the first star of the evening, said the first automobile. We'll make a wish. So the modern automobiles wished in the old way, their wishes. We mustn't waste any more time, whispered one of the trailing Arbutus family to another. No, we mustn't. We must awaken, for we are first to awaken every year. And all the families in this part get up soon. Years ago, continued the second Arbutus, some children came here to look for trailing Arbutus flowers. They said to each other, it must be too soon. There aren't any, but they looked under some of our leaves and several of us were trying to peep out as fast as we could, so we would not disappoint the children. Many of our sisters and brothers were picked and I believe they came out later in water. But those same children have come back every year, and now they are almost grown up. They always say, here is the first place we find these lovely spring flowers. And so we know what is expected of us. Our roots always hand on this story to all the Arbutus flowers. And now along came the grown-ups and some children. We hide our heads under the leaves because we're shy, but we love children and the whole beautiful world, so pick lots of us, and we'll be bright and gay, softly whispered the flowers. But the children only knew that the flowers were very, very fragrant, and oh, so very sweet. The telephone always seemed very important to Rogue, the collie, said. Daddy, he had known his mistress to rush out after the telephone had rung and she had answered it, as if someone were ill, or something had happened which she had found to be of very great importance. She was working in the garden one day when Rogue heard the telephone ring. Evidently she didn't hear it, for she stayed out in the garden and didn't come in to answer it. It rang, and Rogue didn't know what to do. Finally he thought up a scheme, and this is what he did. He ran out in the garden and he stood before his mistress and barked without stopping. First she stroked him and didn't seem to think anything special was the matter, but that, perhaps, he wanted to play. He kept on barking, and after a few minutes she said, What is the matter, Rogue? He started to go towards the house, barking, and turned around to see if she were following him. When she didn't he went and pulled at her skirt. Then she went into the house, following Rogue, and he stopped before the telephone which was still ringing. She answered it and found that it had been ringing a long time, but it was so important that they had kept on ringing to see if she wouldn't hear it after a while. Then she knew that Rogue had let her know the telephone was ringing and wanted her to come to answer it, for that was something he couldn't do. But he could let her know that it was ringing, now that he had found a way of doing so. And now Rogue always lets his mistress know when the telephone is ringing. She works in her garden a great deal but she never misses a telephone call because Rogue hears it, barks for her, and leads her in before the telephone. I'm not angry, said the kettle. I'm hurt. My poor porcelain feelings are most dreadfully hurt. A child tried to move me and in so doing she spilled some of the boiling water over herself. I wasn't quite boiling, said the water. Very nearly boiling I was, though. Don't interrupt, said the kettle. You've caused me enough trouble. Well, the child got quite badly burned. It hurt awfully, for burns always do. Yes, said the butter, from the icebox in the corner of the kitchen. She came to me to be comforted. Butter is excellent for burns. But she blamed me for burning her, said the kettle. She said that, the horrid old kettle burned her, and it wasn't I at all. But the water, fire, paper, sticks, coal and match each in turn quickly said they were not to blame but only the cook, for starting the fire in the first place. Go away, said Peter Goblin. You mustn't come around here. No, you mustn't. I won't have it, not for a moment will I have it. May we talk to you, then? Asked Mr. Measles, as he hurried off. Yes, I will come and talk to you, but you mustn't stay around here. Goblins don't get measles, but children do, and I won't have it. Hurry off, hurry off. Wouldn't they like to have us? Asked Mr. Mumps. Just think how we'd make their faces puff up and look so fine and fat. Yes, said Peter Goblin, crossly, and make it hard for them to swallow. No sir, you get right away from here. How about me? Asked Mrs. Croup. You go away, too, said Peter Goblin. Can't I have just one little look at a nice little boy or a nice little girl? Asked Master Chickenpox. You most certainly cannot, said Peter Goblin. I don't see why not, said Mr. Measles crossly. He had come back a little because he had heard the others talking to Peter Goblin and he thought perhaps Peter had given in. Of course he had never known him to, but he might, one could never tell. I thought I'd told you to start off, said Peter Goblin. Now I won't put up with any more of this nonsense. Be off, all of you. Be off, right away. You promised to talk to us, said Mr. Measles. You will, won't you? But we'd rather have a little chat with a child first, said Mr. Mumps. Maybe you would like to, said Peter Goblin, but you're not going to. And so, 1, 2, 3, go. Every one of you. I'll follow along. Now, what is the use, Mr. Mumps muttered, of being able to make some folks fat when one isn't given the chance? You don't want to make them fat and well, said Peter Goblin. They had all wandered quite far away from the children and so Peter Goblin felt they were safe. He would get many of his goblins right to work to keep an eye on them, for goblins cannot get measles, mumps, chickenpox or croup. Yes, I make them fat, said Mr. Mumps. I never bother about more than their cheeks. They grumble so after I've made them fat that I get disheartened. Good thing you do, said Peter Goblin. You're certainly mean enough. Mr. Mumps knew Peter was right, so didn't say another word. Mr. Measles spoke next. We wanted to have you talk to us, said Mr. Measles, because we cannot understand you. Why not? Asked Peter Goblin. I try to protect the children from getting measles, mumps, chickenpox and croup. Of course they have to help me by trying to keep as well and strong as they can so as to escape you. Whenever one of you gets past us, how badly we do feel. You often do, but we try our best to keep you out. We can't keep you out entirely but we can help. And then good, kind doctors drive you away. We hate doctors, said Mr. Measles. Well, said Mrs. Croup, we shouldn't hate them so much, because we give them a lot of trouble, and we love to give trouble. That's so, we do, said Master Chickenpox. But, said Mr. Measles, people say, oh, don't catch the measles. And be careful not to catch the mumps. Don't go near anyone with chickenpox or you might catch it. Now, to catch a thing, continued Mr. Measles, means to chase after it or try to get it in some way. If they don't like us, why do they talk about catching measles? They say, be careful not to catch Mr. Mumps. It's very silly, for if they really don't like us, they should say, don't let Mr. Mumps catch you. It's rather an absurd expression, admitted Peter Goblin, but stay away from children and talk about it for a good long while. That's what you must all do. When we speak of a person making an exit, said Daddy, we mean that the person has gone out, and so when we speak of the winter's exit, we mean that the winter has made his departure. The winter was quite angry that Mr. Sun was so eager to see the spring. I think, said the winter, you'd be a little scrap more polite, anyway. It always makes me so mad that I just hang around, and laugh when I hear folks say, isn't the winter ever going? Are you going to make your last bow soon? Asked Mr. Sun. Tomorrow, said the winter. Yes, by tomorrow I'll really have to go. And after this last little snowstorm there'll be no more until next year. Ah, what a sad thought that is to me, though it's not such a sad thought for others. They seem to be so absurdly fond of young spring. They spoil him frightfully. And you won't really send any more blizzards? Asked Mr. Sun. I can't, said the winter, because you would cross that old equator, Mr. Sun smiled and the winter said, I'll take a rest now and fool the people. They'll think it's really spring, and then I'll give them my fine farewell tomorrow. And sure enough, on the morrow there was a light fall of snow. The spring hardly knew what to make of it at first, until he found it was so light a storm. That's the winter's beau as he makes his exit, said Mr. Sun to the spring. And the spring sent out the early breezes and said, whisper to the birds, the buds, the children that I've really come, and that winter has made his exit. I must tell you another story about the gray cat, Biddle Birdsall, said Daddy. His mistress Gertrude was away at school. His mistress mother and daddy were out, and the cook was out. It was a very sad household for a cat who wanted a drink of milk. Then he had an idea. He went into his master's study and emptying the wastepaper basket in a pile on the floor, he pushed the wastepaper basket towards the pantry door. When he had finished pushing the basket and when it was right up by the door, he turned it upside down and climbed upon it. There, thought Biddle, now I have it. And he had. He opened that door with his two front paws, turning the knob until it was undone and he could push the door open. Then he moved the basket away, opened the door wide, and purring delightedly to himself, he walked inside the pantry. There was the milk in the saucer, and then, as you can easily guess, Biddle had the milk which he wanted. When he was drinking it, the family came home and saw Biddle and the waste paper basket and saw just what he had done. And this is another true story of the cat, Biddle Birdsall, ended Daddy.